Good evening, everyone. I'd like to call to order the public hearing on the 2018 tentative budget as submitted by the county executive. At this point in time, I'd like to call anyone to the stand to speak about any public comments that anybody would like to bring before us.
Good evening. My name is Mark Montgomery, President of the Montgomery Regional Chamber of Commerce. I'm here to talk about the tourism portion of your budget. It was with great dismay that I heard that this budget does not include funding for the Montgomery Regional Chamber of Commerce to continue as the tourism promotion agency for Montgomery County. We have worked hard and diligently over the past 3 years to replicate the great success we have had in Fulton County with a partnership that has lasted almost 40 years. Here in Montgomery County, we work again to replicate that same success. When first engaging with the county, I said it would take several years of consistent and professional engagement before true results can be or would be seen. Since the 3 years we have been the county's TPA, the following successes have taken place. In the first year, we accomplished all goals we put forth, including the creation of a new county brochure, new and updated website, and the establishment of an updated social media program, all with the new Montgomery County brand, and that's just to mention a few. In the second year, we gathered together many of the county's tourism stakeholders and created a tourism strategic planning committee, co-chaired by Tourism Director Gina DeVary-Gibbs and legislator Bob Bertel, and after many months, created a plan that met the needs of Montgomery County, its businesses, and its residents, a plan that we have now started implementing. When informed that the program might be shifted from the Chamber due to financial constraints, and fully understanding the issue, and having a great desire to continue to be part of the county's promotional team, Gina and I worked to make some financial adjustments and yes, some sacrifices as well, to reduce the tourism budget proposal from $117,000 to $66,000, a decrease of $50,000. We are not simply administering a grant, we are managing a tourism program. We are hands-on, helping organizations start, promote, and sustain events throughout Montgomery County. Sunday on the Farm, Riverfest, and various 200th anniversaries Canal Celebration are just a few of the many that bring travel dollars to the county while also enhancing the quality of life for our residents and bringing business to more businesses, to our businesses. We reach out to our tourism venues across Montgomery County on a regular basis to aid them in marketing and promotion of their properties. Gina, Tara, and the entire team, the entire chamber team work together as true professionals to ensure the continued success of Montgomery County's tourism program. We believe that the success of the tourism program since it came to the Fulton Montgomery Chamber are obvious. And we believe that the consistency is so important to continue on the successes that we believe have taken place over the last 3 years. We would love to see our plan come to fruition and result in increased tourism dollars that will be of benefit to all of us and the citizens of Montgomery County. I respectfully ask that you reconsider moving your tourism program from the Chamber and let us continue the work we have proudly done for your county. I assume all of you have seen have copies of the revised proposal. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Kilmer. Is there anyone else who would like to make a public comment? Okay, upon hearing none, the public hearing on the 2018 tentative budget as submitted by the county executive is adjourned. Thank you. All right, this evening we're going to go in a little bit of a order here tonight where we've called 4 departments to the legislature to get into a little bit more detail about some of their line items, including personnel and Nicole Yeagle, the sheriff with Michael Amato, Department of Social Services with Mike McMahon, and the Department of Public Works with Eric Mead. And we will begin in the area of personnel. The legislature looked at the budget, proposed changes to the budget on September 10th. And we focused on the 5 largest and the 5 largest increases and the 5 largest decreases. And it just so happens that all of you met that sample in some way or another. So that is why you were here today. So in starting with the personnel department, some of the questions we had the day of the budget hearing on the 10th of September involved a personnel line item. And I'm sorry. I'd like to call the, excuse me please, I'd like to call the Budget and Finance Committee meeting to order at 6:07. So proceeding therefore, Nicole, can you please explain, I mean, we did get some detail from Sean and from Matt. Looking at some of the numbers here, we noticed that total personnel expense was up year over year as submitted and amended by the executive, about $354,000. Now, there are a couple of line items that jumped out at us and that we discussed that day, including one we were fully aware of was the potential renegotiation of the CSEA contract, which contributed about $285,000 to that figure, as well as a $73,000 line item, other service fees, which were explained to us to involve a contract with ADP to handle the payroll. So with that in mind, can you elaborate at all on any of those line items for us? At this point, yes.
As far as the ADP and the additional ones.
Yeah, if you can give us some detail on the CSEA contract, and the likelihood that it's going to go in force, as well as some information on the ADP contract.
CSEA right now, the MOU has been presented now to CSEA as of today. The money that has been earmarked in the budget is in anticipation of the vote by the membership once they have received the MOU. The specifics as to what is contained within the contract is still confidential until the membership has had a chance to vote on it. Once that happens, then it will be presented to the legislature and in detail. But at this point, because of the pending MOU, it's limited with the earmarked money for $285,000. We do hope that this contract negotiation, that it will be voted on.
And that would be for a 3-year period, correct?
It would be.
Okay.
It would start in beginning of 2017 and go for an additional 3 years.
So part of it would be retro? You said 2007, 2018.
I'm sorry.
I believe you just said...
2017, 18, and 19? And 20.
Okay. All right. And there was also some discussion on that ADP contract. Some of the legislators had some questions about it. So can you give us some more detail on that, how it's going to affect things?
We have currently, we have time clocks right now that are outdated. They have been outdated for a while. They're legacy clocks. With that affects our time and attendance. We have to update it. We also have payroll has been absorbed in my department. Payroll has always been with one person, and therefore there's been no backup for payroll. So I felt it was financially responsible and good for the county to seek quotes outside of the county to process our payroll. Also do a whole new time and attendance system. It would also incorporate our ACA reporting that we currently contract out for, as well as handling some of our FMLA and all the other initials that HR is responsible for. So overall, that contract that was voted on by the legislature was, I think, for a total around $73,000 per year. And would move the county forward.
I think we voted on it last year.
Yes. I think it was 163 or 16.
Okay.
Was to allow me to enter into that agreement with ADP.
So this is just the fee
This is
that
the
we
fee that
voted on.
was contractual.
And it won't have any effect on any existing personnel?
It does not. It doesn't eliminate any personnel. It does, if we say the county had to hire a new person to help with payroll, it actually is less expensive given our benefits and the functions of ADP. So what they'll be able to provide, it takes on the tax liability for the county as well, which is priceless.
Okay. Anyone else, any other legislator have any question about those two line items? All right, hearing none, I'd also like to move down to the fringe benefits section of your proposed budget, and recognizing that there's an approximate $427,000 increase year over year from the adopted 17 budget to the proposed budget here. Now, obviously, we're well aware of the fact that some of these items are a function of the fact that the CSEA contract may get approved. Comprising that $427,000 number are three specific line items. FICA going up about $57,000. So obviously that's a proportional increase related to the contract.
It is proportional to the budget for the county.
Okay. And hospital and medical insurance up about $160,000. Can you provide us a little insight into that increase in that proposed line item?
I can. We are self-insured, as everybody knows, and we pay dollar for dollar for each one of the claims. So we are currently trending upwards. However, it has been, self-insurance is still working on the benefit of the county. We're still only, I would say, approximately at 10% above where we have been. But industry standards are 12 to 15% currently, so we're still trending okay. We're being aggressive. I am currently marketing with our broker to look at multiple providers for health insurance, both on the active and the retiree side, to look for some potential cost savings there. And then, we've also had this year, which is different than any other year, we've had some high-cost claimants, and which a few of them have breached opt-outs. So that adds to the upwards increase for this year and for next year's budget and the projections.
Okay, and probably the largest contributor to that proposed increase is an approximate $203,000 increase to the workman's comp line item. We did get some detail from Sean and from our county executive about that, about some higher incidence of workman's comp claims, and I'd like you to elaborate on that if you could, please.
We definitely have also had an increase in claims, and I have been on both health insurance and workers' comp side, again, still being aggressive. I have quarterly meetings on both funds to look at claims and try to project where we're headed. Some on the workers' comp side, however, we do have a lot of old lag claims that I'm looking to actively, and trying to actively settle some of those cases to stop the constant flow of money going out. So we anticipate that in 2018 we'll be able to settle a few of those claims, and in that you'll see part of the reason for the increase.
So kind of planning for the fact that there'll be some settlements involved based on past claims.
Correct, and I work very closely with both HFSB and Triad for the protections for this. So I would say that even though my numbers are where they are currently, it's still an aggressive number, and in hopes that, and thinking about past trends, and that it should perhaps level out.
And this is the type of line item that could fluctuate from year to year based on that activity, correct?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Does any other legislator have a question for Nicole on those particular line items? Legislator?
I don't know that I do.
Okay, and hearing none, any other questions any legislator would like to propose to Nicole? Legislator Sweet.
Going back up to appropriations personnel, line 1430, 1110, it's 526, human resource clerk. I see that position is eliminated.
And she
With the replacement of the title.
So on one of my HR clerks, she's currently and has been for years working out of title. She is working in a much higher classification than what she's currently being paid for in title. So I have asked that her title be changed to be appropriate for the duties that she performs, and that she will also have to take an exam and score at the top 3 and be regional in order to maintain that position. Should she not be, then she would have retreat rights back to her previous position as an HR clerk.
So where would she move to? What position?
She would be an employee benefits representative, and you'll find her probably not in the A fund at all. You'll find her in the M fund and the MS fund.
Let's see. Also, down under 1430, maintenance agreements.
Yep.
4425. I see over the last few years it's been roughly staying 23.5 for the last accidents. Actually, it's a little bit lower than that. But is there a reason that we're dropping from a $38,000 budget and 17 down to 17.5?
Correct, yes. With the addition of, with ADP, out of that line there, you were paying MM Hayes for the time and attendance and the Cronus maintenance system. So that all shifted to ADP. That will all shift to ADP should the contract.
Offsetting some of that cost, perhaps.
Offsetting some of the cost.
That's a positive.
And one last thing, I see in retirement, it seems like it's steadily declining, the number.
That's Sean.
That's the yearly invoice from the retirement system, and it has been trending downward the last couple of years, so the trend right now is it may go down a little bit, but that's why you see it stay the same. Okay. We don't have the actual rates for the retirement system.
And it seems like it's dropping.
And you will see a large drop maybe a couple of years ago because a number of years ago we did the retirement incentive and amortized that over a 5-year period. So once that payment dropped off, I believe about 2 or 3 years ago. So that was around a $60,000 or $70,000 payment per year. So that's why you may have seen a big drop from the previous year.
All right, thank you, Drew.
Thank you, Legislator Sweet. Any other questions for Nicole on the Department 10 personnel budget? Hearing none, Nicole, thank you for making yourself available this evening. We appreciate your time.
Thank you.
All right, moving right along. We will move to Department 15, the sheriff and the jail. Sheriff, welcome tonight. How you doing tonight? All right, that's good. We'll be on page 15 for those of you following along in your budget workbooks. Sheriff, again, the same type of thing that we were talking about with Nicole, looking at large year-over-year changes, things of that nature. Some that we discussed on the 10th, something that you've been here to talk to us about before, the foreign prisoner line item, last year an adopted budget of 300. Looks like you put in for 100 this year. The executives amended it up to 175. The difference between the adopted budget last year and this year, about 100 is 125,000, a fairly large contributor to the decline in revenue. Just wanted to get a little more insight from you on that. And I know you did speak to us about it, but are you comfortable with the 175?
I spoke to the county executive. The way it's spending so far this year, yes, I'll feel comfortable with it next year.
Okay, something you feel that can be attained?
Yes.
All right, great, thanks. And the other question I had for you in that regard, in the revenue line items, there was a line item, other public safety. It was adopted last year for $147,000, so that was another large item that was not in the revenues this year, and just wanted to get a little insight as to why that disappeared.
Well, that's grant money from the state for
Okay.
911,
Okay,
and they dole out how they want to. This year, they didn't provide us with anything for that.
okay,
They gave us a grant, I think I noted that in the reports that we did monthly. It was a little over $400,000. But they earmarked that, no salaries unless I was hiring somebody to do, coordinate our consortium with the other counties. That's all they would pay for. They wouldn't pay any salaries or overtime or anything with this grant money.
okay, great. Thank you. That's all I have. Any other questions from any of the other legislators on the sheriff's proposed and budget and as proposed by the executive? Any of the other legislators? Legislator Sweet.
Sure. I see under public safety, 3020, 110, 1413 dispatcher. You did not request a position there, but the executive did. It's, I don't know, it's a dispatcher.
Well, what I asked for was we had a title of dispatcher of telecommunication person. That person overseeing my 911 on an everyday basis with the vendors. That was like a promotion, because that person was doing a lot more work than the other dispatchers, but that person was still a dispatcher. The extra money, like $4,000 in the title increase, that doesn't come out of the tax money. That comes out of 911 revenue money, so it's not tax, you know, it doesn't affect the taxes. It comes out of the revenue I get every year. So basically, it's no brainer when it comes to that. We had that position before, but through changing of people, we didn't have the position for a couple of years. My undersheriff, Justin Kramer at that time, when that person left, Justin Kramer was also an IT person, and he volunteered to do that job. He was doing it until he left. And now I have nobody, so I asked to get that position back again.
Okay. And I also see there's some motor vehicle equipment and some technical equipment. That was also reduced to zero. One was $25,712, and the other one for technical equipment was $5,800.
One was for the sheriff patrol, and I spoke again to the county exec. Now, I understand, if I can't get the 3 cars, I can't get the 3 cars in the road patrol. The other vehicle was for a car for the jail. We do all types of transport with that car with the federal prisoners. That's kind of like why I need it. It's got 300,000 miles on it right now, it's my current car. That money would come out of revenue from the inmates that we get phone revenue. We get about $70,000 a year in phone revenue from the inmates. So when they make a phone call, the percentage of that money that we get back, that they pay for that phone call. And in the past, I bought a van with that a few years back when I had it in my control, that money. I could only spend that money on the jail and to improve, the jail when I had it. It went to the county, and now I have to ask the county legislators for that money to buy these things. So, yeah, that money is not the taxpayers' money, that's the inmates' revenue.
Thank you, Sheriff. Sure.
Thank you, Legislator Sweet. Legislator Patel.
Sheriff, I just have one question. I would probably discuss this in the past. Under professional services, the 2016 budget was $95,000. Following year it was $107,750. And then it jumped up this year to $225,000. Can you give me some insight into that?
Sure. That's the contract we have with Eastern Medical Support to do our medicine and doctors in the jail. There's numerous reasons why that jumped to that cost factor. One, there was a lawsuit in our county, in Fulton County, and that prompted the insurance company to raise the company's rates, the EMS's rates. But on top of that, insurance rates for this type of program throughout the nation has skyrocketed. So he warned me well ahead of time that these things were going to happen. And I told them, well, that we'll just have to, have the county go out to an RFP to try to find another agency, which there's one other agency out there, but I don't think we really want that agency, because looked into it, you would want, I don't want to mention who they are, but Sean's probably the only one we have in town right now that can do what we need. But I believe the county exec has gone out to an RFP on it, so we're just, waiting for the return.
We'll have the responses to that in just over 2 weeks. And we can give you a much better idea of what we're looking at. But we wanted to make sure that that funding was there. You know, if it was in fact as big of an increase as we think it might be, you know, we'll be safe with having enough funding.
Thank you very much.
All set, Legislator Patel? Legislator
Can I
Isabel?
discuss my proposal now, or should I wait?
I would say, Legislator Isabel, we will go, and for all of you department heads here who may or may not have tendered proposed budget changes through respective chairs that govern your worlds, we're going to go through those line by line in order once we get through these interviews. Yes,
I
Chair.
have some small minor adjustments to my budget, so I'll just send them to the treasurer like I used in the past. That reduces my budget. That's what I normally do. I'll send him updates to areas where I've been cutting as we get closer to that time.
Is that all right, Sean?
Well, just to give you this legislation update, usually if there's corrections from departments, we usually put one resolution up that has corrections from the department heads.
Okay.
And I can start one of them.
Yeah, once we get through this whole
His
process.
corrections would be the first ones that I received from any department.
Okay. Yes. Sounds good. All right, so Legislator Isabel, if you don't mind, we'll get to the ones on this sheet once we're through interviewing the department heads. Thank you very much. All right, any other questions for Sheriff Amato? Thank you, Sheriff, for making yourself available. All right, moving right along, let's move to Department of Social Services, Department 18. And that would be in your budget workbooks here, page 27. And I ask any legislator who's going to ask a question, as Legislator Sweet has done, to please direct our attention to the line item you're talking about when you're asking the department head. I'd like to welcome Commissioner McMahon. Thank you for being here tonight.
Thank you, Chair.
And making yourself available. Commissioner, again, you know, some of the things we talked about on the 10th, you know, we looked at revenues, saw that they were down about $316,000 from an adopted 17 budget versus the executive's proposed budget in 2018. You know, in looking at some of them, there were two large reductions in the revenue line item. One being line 3610, Social Services Administration, down about $170,000. And also Family Assistance, line number 4609. Now, obviously, we notice here that on the Social Services Administration, you did request the same level that you had last year. So I guess perhaps this question would go to County Executive Ossenfort as to the impetus behind the reduction and on that line item, or through Sean.
You're saying from the request from the department to my budget, why was there that change? Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Well, the request was essentially, in for the most part, in DSS, I mean, it's a big, complicated budget. The initial request was essentially a starting point. We met a number of times before the executive budget was completed with Sean, Michelle, Mike, and the team, talked over the details of their plan, worked through a few issues, and ultimately, all of us felt comfortable with what was in the executive budget after a number of meetings and specific as to why certain things changed. I would defer to Michelle and Mike and Sean, but you know, there were some different reasons as to why some of the different lines changed. Obviously, with the goal of trying to maximize revenue and hold the line unexpected.
Sure. Commissioner, any insight into that number yourself or no?
The family assistance is...
No, the social service, first, the Social Service Administration.
The administrative one?
Yeah.
There's items fund that 3610 line, and that's state revenue that comes back in. So whereas our expenditures decrease, our revenues are also going to decrease as well.
Proportionally? Okay.
Correct, yes.
Thank you on that. And on the family assistance, you know, I see the adopted budget for last year, $3,950,000. Your request was less this year, so there must be a story behind that. And it got trimmed a little bit more, the year over year, about $500,000 from what was adopted last year down to what was reduced by the executive. But obviously, there's got to be a story there behind why it doesn't need to be as high as it was last year. You know, I'll throw that out to the both of you.
Sure. Well, I think we see an improvement in the economic climate. One, we have 5.3% unemployment as registered in August. It is going down, which is good. We also see that we're working intensely with our safety net population in a pilot that we just started with FMCC in training people and getting people job ready. And getting full-time jobs. And that's a goal we started. We've already had one pilot that just concluded. We're starting another one on October 10th. We have 30 people registered for that class. It's a 30-day program. And then they're almost guaranteed if they finish, they complete, they get a job. So we're, you know, case by case, hopefully going to drop that line, particularly the safety net line, is what we're focusing on. And that's, of course, when it comes to county government, is 71% is local share of those safety net clients.
Okay.
So I think that is probably our thinking.
All right, great, thank you. Now, offsetting those reductions in those revenue line items were some increases that, you know, I think it would be nice to get a little detail on. The juvenile delinquent, I think I know what the story's going to be here. Adopted last year, $660,000 roughly, up to about $738,000. An increase of about $78,400. Commissioner, any insight there?
Well, you know, there's a lot of movement in that population. We saw a decrease with the JDs. But looking at forecasting out is that we see raised gauge is coming around, and we're going to get some of those kids that haven't been with us. I think that was part of it, maybe.
That's what I thought you might say. Yeah, that's what I thought might be contributing to
that.
that.
I think would have a better answer. But that number does fluctuate. JDs,
Okay.
Your PINs, persons in need of supervision, those numbers do fluctuate. It's part of our budget that makes it a little crazy sometimes. You're throwing a dart in the wall sometimes.
Sure.
But we know raised gauge will become a reality next October 18th. We didn't really budget per se a line there, because we think we can make up for it with unused lines. That's going to be a reality next year when 16-year-olds are going to be moved out of adult prisons and put into detention facilities, which we got out of that business several years ago.
Right.
And now we're kind of getting back into it again. It's very expensive, very costly. You're looking at rates, you know, $700, $800 a day in some cases.
Sure. Okay.
Anyhow, I think we're prepared for that.
All right. Also, the emergency aid for adults up about $56,000, $55,946. Just curious what may be contributing to that increase.
Yeah, it's another services line. You said
That would be, I'm sorry, that would be line 3642 in your revenue line items. Excuse me, 36. Right.
I think we're just looking at, we're forecasting here, projecting out that we're at 94% now, that we're just looking at next year, we'll probably go over.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, can you go over that line item again? Because mine doesn't read that way.
No, I'm probably, I need a little slide rule here or something.
I think I'm looking at $100,000 all the way across.
No, that's the wrong line item. It's daycare. Daycare is the line item. My apologies.
Okay. That makes sense.
Daycare up about 56,000. You expecting an influx of more daycare revenue?
Well, yeah, daycare is one of those programs that we've never seen that enough money. We end up going to a wait list usually late in the year. and we're working with these new clients in this pilot. We want to make sure that daycare isn't an obstacle and then holding it up.
Okay.
That's where we use more funding all the time, actually, for daycare.
But the volume is there? Yes. What are the rates in that world, you know? How-
It varies based on the age of the children.
Okay.
It's a little difficult to give you an estimate.
Okay.
But it covers not only the folks that are on temporary assistance, but also we do have to provide daycare to folks, to foster parents who have helped the county in terms of fostering a child, and we will have to provide foster care, daycare to those individuals.
Okay, thanks, Michelle. And also, child care line item 4619, up about $205,000, thank you, $205,000, 204,750. I guess I have a two-part question. One being what contributes to that potential revenue increase, and the other one being, I see another line item further up here, childcare, and I just wanted to know what the difference between the two were and why they weren't all in one line item. But that's the second part of the question. Let's talk about the increase in the revenue first. 4619.
Yeah, one is a foster care block grant.
Okay.
So that's what we use. And the other one is a child care block. There's two block grants.
Which one is the one that is contributing to the increase in the revenue? 4619.
Foster care.
Foster care? And you expect more volume there?
I think until your heroin and opiate prices abated, you're going to see that number.
Okay. And you answered the other question. Any other legislator have it? Yes, Legislator Sweet.
If you go back to those three big lines that you talked about, the first one, 3610, Social Services Administrator.
Yes.
If you look at the actual that we got provided to us tonight, that actual for 2016 is only $642,971. I don't know if that might be a mistake, a typo. 3610. The actual for that 2016 is $642,971. It was budgeted as $1,350,000.
Budgeted for $1,491,000 last year, for this year.
Right.
Yep.
But the actual was $642,971.
Yeah, no, point well taken. It's not tracking near the budgeted level.
Also, the daycare 3655, that actual was $568,652, which is a couple $100,000 more, almost $200,000 less.
But, and that is through
That's actual for 16.
17 to me.
16,
What's actual for 17?
we're not done yet.
No, I know, but if it's tracking,
I don't know. We can get provided that.
oh, okay, I'm sorry.
Mr. Chairman, are we now referencing this document?
That's,
Or is that?
No, it's still in the budget.
well, I'm referencing the actual.
Oh, yes, Legislator Sweet is, yes.
Okay, what page is that?
That is page 36.
Thank you.
And then 4619 child care, the last one we spoke about, that is, that's like $1 million under actual. That's actual 271,043.
From 16.
Yeah.
Any insights into those? Yeah. Yes, Sean, thank you.
A lot of this has to do with, there's a GASB provision out there, Governmental Accounting Standard Board Provision 33. If revenue is not received within 90 days after the end of the year, that amount gets deferred. It's reduced, the revenue gets reduced, and on a balance sheet, it goes to a deferred revenue. So you'll see, I can give you detailed numbers tomorrow to show you what, of the 16 numbers that were deferred, received after, over the 90-day threshold.
Maybe we can get a year-to-date on those three lines, just to see if it's tracking the way that.
How about that? That's even better. Okay. Just, all set, Legislator Sweet?
Sure.
Legislator Chesky?
Well, I think I've had this question answered before, but I still need some help with it. How, when revenues lag, how they're booked into the next year, but are we enjoying the benefits of the revenues that lagged the previous year? Aren't they being booked into this year?
They are, but sometimes the variances, could be a big variance. And I can give you year-over-year examples to show you the difference from one year to the next. It all depends on the timing of the state and federal payments to the county.
Legislator Patel?
Legislator Chesky.
That was the question?
Yeah, that was it.
Yeah, if it happens year over year over year, I see your point. Obviously, it's going to be carried. Yes, Legislator
If
Sweet?
you go back to 15 actual, the last one we were talking about, the 4619, that's only at 479, so there's got to be some place where that money is caught up, I would think.
Makes sense. Sean, any insight there?
You're talking 4619?
Yes.
That one there was 4619, the actual for 15 is 479.
Actually, if you look at 15, for 4619, the budget for 15 was only 140, but we received 479. So some of that was carryover from the previous
From the
year.
previous year.
Okay.
You see the difference in where it was actually quite a bit over, and probably that's an example where an amount from the previous year was actually realized the following.
Still quite itself out.
I noticed that budgeted for $360,000 in 16. What was actually realized in 16?
270.
Okay.
So can you get a breakout of that?
Can you provide us that breakout? Send us an email, Sean? Okay, great. Yeah. All right, thanks. All right, any other questions from any other legislator on the DSS budget? Hearing none, we will move to the Department of Public Works, and that would be Department 12. And in your adopted workbooks here, find a page here. There's the back. Well, actually, Eric, thank you for being here, by the way, making yourself available tonight. Can you just provide us some insight, into actually what your budget, as it pertains to the general fund and the county road fund and the road machinery fund on an aggregate basis, is down about $99,000. Can you, provide a little insight into that for us?
Thanks, Matt. I think you knew that was coming. My requested budget, I don't believe was down 99,000. I believe when my budget was completed by the higher up, it ended up at 99,000.
Okay. So I think what we're getting at, in Legislator Wilson, we're looking at page 11. Yep. All right, so I think actually when it comes to you, most of these changes are going to be on this sheet now, aren't they? The things that you sent us the memo on?
I sent you over an email, I believe I sent it to, I don't know if you got a copy of that. I know I sent it to the committee earlier, Dan and Legislator Edwell.
Yes, dated September 14th with proposed changes to the county road fund, road machinery fund, and public works, correct?
Correct.
Okay. I believe all of those are going to be on this sheet of proposed changes.
Okay.
So we'll be talking about them as we move down the line there. Okay. Any other insights you want to provide to us other than what you just did?
Am I going to be called upon line by line as you go, or is this my chance to spill my 2 cents there?
The floor is yours, Commissioner.
I just want to, just touch base again as far as the road fund goes. I know the request that I put in was originally extremely high, but based on some of the roads that are in dire need of maintenance, especially in the towns of Glen and Root, we have some serious heavy traffic in those areas, farm traffic, heavy truck traffic. And there's a lot of repair that needs to be done there. And as I do have CHIPS money for those repairs, I also have to look at the other towns in terms that need as much work as well as CHIPS. And as well as that with the maintenance, that's where all the towns are paid for their mowing, our stone and oil, our micro paving, things like that. All of our winter work, our tree maintenance program, things like that, for our prep prior to the season. And I explained to you as far in that letter as far as my personnel requests are. And with the equipment, this year we've made great strides in improving on a lot of our equipment in DPW. When I took over, we had 2 plows for cleaning parking lots and keeping up with all the grounds, and with no other than our capital equipment plan, that I thank you guys for what you put in this year. We're now sitting at 6 plows, a 12-foot snow pusher. We've replaced a lot of equipment this year that was in dire need. Like I said, with the request that was in, we get to a point where we're putting the same amount of money into a vehicle that it's worth. There doesn't make much sense. You're not getting any more value out of that piece of equipment than what you're putting into it. So, but as I explained to you in the letter, those are my, everything else I'm pretty workable with what Executive asking for reduced by. I can live within those parameters to make it work.
Commissioner, how dire of a need is your request on maintenance line item for the roads in Glen? Can you give us a little more insight into that?
The biggest fear is we've got some pretty big ruts, I guess you would call them, on the roads. There's water, you get water infiltration under the roads, causing the roads to break up. It's almost in a swamp area if you were to travel Logtown Road area and look at it. So the road needs to go through a total reclamation process, needs to be dug out. All the moisture dug out from under the road, gravel, fabric, more gravel rolled in, repaved, and complete ditching of the area up there. We're actually talking about raising the road, because right now the shoulder of the road is even with the swamp out there. And every year the beavers cause more and more damages for us, flooding the road, washing out culverts, as we've had this past winter. So it's we've got to do the job regardless, whether I have to use more money from CHIPS to perform it. The problem that I'm going to run into is there's going to be other roads in the county that are going to suffer from it. And they said with that money, that's what we raise catch basins with and fix potholes, So I'm not pointing at you, Bob. I'm just.
And I do believe there was some discussion we had among ourselves that we wanted to, and Chairman Diamond, I don't know if you got an answer on this from our county treasurer, but if in fact, Sean, is there a way to bond that type of project, a road project? If that's available to us as an option?
It is an option,
It is.
yes.
So bonding is not just for fixed assets, it can be...
If you go back a number of years, probably 10, 15 years ago, they did used to do some bonding for some road programs, for road projects.
So is there a way, we're just exploring here. Is there a way, has the capital projects plan for 2018 been devised yet?
I believe it has, yes.
It has. It as submitted by Ken? Yes.
There wasn't anything in there for any road projects.
And I do know that there's usually a lid on how much we can borrow every year in order to maintain our bond rate.
We try to keep it under $10 million a year so that we can deal with bank qualified bonds, so. But it's, the issue you have is the more borrowing you do, the more indebtedness payments you're gonna have year over year. So.
Understood, but sometimes it's an alternative and an option that's less expensive than expensing it, obviously. The debt service on it far less than the actual expense of paying for it. So it sounds to me like whatever Mr. Rose has submitted seems to be higher on your internal priority list.
I would say that, it's, having a discussion about what's in the capital plan as a whole would be probably a good thing to do within the next week or so, especially given the need. Our issue is always there are plenty of projects and equipment and whatever, more than what we can do every year. So it's a matter of prioritization.
Sure it is.
And, as we know, we're hoped to be out of the annex building before the boiler broke. Well, guess what? The boiler broke and we're not out of the annex building. So there's a whole host of things to consider in that regard. Also, I would say that, usually it's a bit of a dance with DPW and not just with Eric. Usually the request comes in at about 1.3 and we've had about 800,000. I lowered that down to 750 because we're expecting to have another 300,000 or so of work to be done on the bike path next year, which, based on the grant, has to be done by our guys. So that's an additional $300,000 of work. While it's not roads and it's not going to fix that road and climb, it is still work that those crews have to do next year.
So maybe it's a time issue, correct? Or
Yeah,
a manpower issue?
Yeah, and I think in the context of the capital plan and having to talk about that, I think is certainly would be a good positive next step to talk about it.
Okay. All right, any other questions for Commissioner Mead? Yes, Legislator Bertel.
Thank you.
You're certainly welcome, sir.
Eric, I'm curious about the Logtown roads. I know you and I have had some discussions about two roads in particular. In my mind's eye, Logtown Road is not a superly heavily traveled road, but it is a thoroughfare, say, between 30A and 162. What's the estimated cost for reconstruction?
I'm still waiting for the final numbers to come back, but we're guessing for the stretch that needs to be done, probably going to be in the neighborhood of 300,000 to 400,000.
Is there sections that we could have priority sections, or is this the?
Yeah, well, I have a 300-foot section that I've made priority. If I can't go all the way to the town of Glen line to the town route.
So in taking and rebuilding, say, this 300-foot section, would that interfere with, or would that be money out the window towards the repair of the whole road? In other words, are we taking $300,000, putting a Band-Aid on that, or say $100,000, putting a Band-Aid on that 300 feet of road, as opposed to just biting the bullet and doing the whole?
No, because it's been Band-Aided enough over the years. So the only thing that we're looking at doing with it this year is putting a grader patch on it, filling in the rut on the shoulders of the road to get through the winter, and then the next step is going to be to dig it up, raise the road in that one area, change the ditches and start right over. Like I said, if we have to do a short section of it where it's worse, but then, like I said, this town that we're looking to perform this road on next year happens to fall in our rotation. So the year after, we'd have, use extra available CHIPS funds to go out and complete the road, or pull another road or two completely out of the road program for next year so that we can completely finish that road. We've had to do that this year. We've had to pull a couple roads in certain districts so that we can get the worst of the roads completed.
So I guess my point is you're confident that we have to rebuild this road? There's no other shorter route or
Correct.
Band-Aid.
Band-Aid. Thank you.
Commissioner, in the allotment that the county executive settled on in his budget, you requested $1.3 million to include this road project. What the tentative budget line item reads now is $750. What do you feel you'll accomplish with that $750? I mean, do you have things in mind yourself that you know you're going to use that money for?
Well, yeah, we did all of our crack sealing this year. That you do your crack sealing in preparation for your single seals road treatments for the following year. So all that work was performed this year in anticipation of what we're going to stone and oil for next year. So there's a couple $100,000 right there of what's planned. We're just starting to put our micro paving list together, which would be for a latex surface, which will be going on in County Amsterdam end of this week. Anybody want to see it, it'll be going on Golf Course Road, Northern Boulevard, a couple other places. Like I said, our guardrail repair, which you never know one year to the next. Mowing contracts come immediately out of that, which is $160,000. That immediately comes right off the top. So take 160 off the 750, that's what I'm starting with before. We don't know what kind of winter we're gonna have coming up.
No.
Trees down, that all comes out of that line.
Okay. That's
Like, Matt says, he wants to focus more towards the bike path, I have, but that's one crew. And a lot of the maintenance money that goes out is subbed out for stone and oil. That's nothing we do. That's subbed to local contractors, be it Gordon.
Okay. All right, any other legislators have questions? Yes, Legislator Jesse.
Just briefly, Commissioner, this is with respect to reimbursement for snow plowing and those contracts. We met recently and talked about some baseline measurements and some consistent record keeping.
Yep.
I know it's kind of unwieldy because we're dealing with other elected officials and such. But have you made any progress with those contacts and getting that established?
I know the three that we had in question with Mark Tesoro, Bill Hulbig, I believe Bill Weller, and I believe it's Sherrillstown, Scott Crewell. I believe those are four of the biggest areas we're working on having good solid numbers for you for when you guys sit down and meet this fall with your committee. But I told them to make sure their numbers were ready for it because you were going to be asking.
Yes, we're looking for some better justification.
Right.
All right, thank you.
Legislator Sweet.
Eric, I just want to go through a couple lines here. First one is under Public Works Administration. There's two.
Can you direct us all to that?
Yeah, it's line 1490, 1110, 1261, 1262.
Page. Legislator Sweet.
Page 11.
Okay.
I'm assuming those are two new positions because I don't see them in the previous.
Yeah, I'll take that one. That was me. So we're dedicating, in talking with Eric, we're dedicating 1.5 staff to the implementation of the efficiency plan. We're not going to know if we're a $20 million winner until November. However, in recent meetings with the Department of State, we've been told that they want to prepare as if everybody's a loser till there's a winner. And we're in the process of putting in grants to implement portions of that efficiency plan. And the staff that work on those grants, that salary can be reimbursed. So now we're going to have 1.5 FTEs focused solely on that, with the priorities being the core consolidation and the beach nut piece, as well as the electronic records management, the salt storage shed in Minden and Fort Plain. So you'll see there's a corresponding revenue with those two positions. The management assistant position is only half funded, but in discussions with Eric related to not having, use some extra help on the administrative side of the office. So we're going to split half of that person to administration and then the other half to the implementation of the shared services panel. So we did, but that was, we were trying to figure out which department that should be in. There's going to be a lot of engineering work and grant writing there, and we ultimately settled on Eric. And after talking with it, he's learned to tolerate me at a few levels this year, but that's the explanation of that.
So what happens to these people if we're not the winner of the $20 million?
If we're not the winner, I'm confident we are going to have significant funding, or at the very least, to begin implementing this plan next year. We were one of 6 finalists, and the word we're getting is that there's going to be some significant funding for each of the 6 municipalities. We were actually asked to present our court consolidation at the governor's. It's a conference on government innovation in November. So I'm taking that as a sign, if we're being asked to share with the rest of the state what our plans are, that we're likely going to have some funding there. There is no guarantee, but I'm confident that there's going to be some funding there. The grants that we're putting in are due in early November, and we should have an announcement mid-November. So if we had to make any adjustments, corrections before the first of the year, we still would have December. But I'm pretty confident that there's going to be plenty of work to do. And we actually had Department of State down, and some other communities have had up to 5, 6 people working on these things. We didn't think we'd obviously need that much, but 1.5. We double-checked the ability to be reimbursed for these positions through the Craig Grant and the Municipal Restructuring Fund, and that's perfectly okay to reimburse for salaries for the implementation.
So the revenue line would stay there even if we didn't receive the 20 million?
Potentially, yes. I'm confident it will be, but until this governor announces it, it's not for sure, but I'm confident that there's going to be resources allocated for the town.
Thank you. Under buildings and grounds, page 12, line 1620, 4412, under light and power. I'm seeing a reduction of $58,000, which ends up being about $4,800 a month. Is there we have a bunch of LED bulbs?
That new boiler?
This goes back to last year when the legislature approved the whole project with Smart Lot. We went out and bonded about $2 million for these Smart Lot improvements. And there's supposed to be an energy savings to offset the bonding for that Smart Lot project. So that's why the line is reduced.
Did they provide you a potential amortization, Scott, to let you know how those improvements?
I have the amortization schedule of the actual bonding, but
No, I mean, how much money you would save as a result of the improvements. Did they give you any? They must have given you an estimate, yes?
I believe we got that in when they did the...
Okay. I mean, so it would tie into that number, correct? Yeah, okay.
Chairman, the actual last year was 281. If you look at this sheet here, so 275 and 281, and so it's showing the direction that it should be going in.
Yes, okay. Thank you.
Let's see. Under buildings and ground again, same page, 1620, 4421, property rental lease repair. Looks like last year, actual was $238.69. You budgeted $255, which is close, but the executive dropped it to $155.
what's been paid out of that line when it's gone up, if you go back a number of years, it's always been around that 150. But they've done some studies, for example, of what's needed at the jail, walkthroughs and studies on what needs a jail needs and what other county office buildings needs. And like I said, there's decision between the executive and myself, and like I said,
Yeah, I see it was hovering right around 150, but then I saw it spike last
there
year.
was a couple studies, I know, I believe last year, I was involved in the walkthrough of the public safety building. And that's what these additional funds paid for, is studies to find out exactly a professional's opinion on what improvements or needs are needed at the county office buildings.
I think I've got one more, same page, under special recreation facility, it's line 7180, 1130, 1396 is a temporary employee that you requested, and
That's for bike path maintenance, for mowing with the bike path. This year, I had an employee in the department. He left us back in February, and not having any money in the line and lack of employees, I used that salary to fund that line earlier this year, if you remember. So I requested to have that position restated this year, which didn't happen, but with this other shared service plan that Matt just mentioned, we could get around that, but I did request for the temporary bike path position be put back in, because that badly needed. I have just enough guys for most of the work done around facilities now, rather than dedicating 2 guys for mowing all summer.
that's all I got. Thank you, Chair.
You're welcome, Legislator Sweet. Any other questions for Commissioner Meade? All right, hearing none, we will now move on to the budget worksheet of proposed changes to the budget. And what I'd like to do... Yes, Legislator Patel.
I had a question about the Board of Elections, and I actually asked Mr. Bean if he could just comment. I was wondering what they've given that, or do you want to wait till I
Well, I do believe that Mr. Smith emailed me last week and asked how he wanted to talk about some things, and asked how to go about doing it. And I explained to him in an email that we had already set our slate of departments to come to speak before us, and that the opportunity would be provided during the public comment section. And that's why I was surprised Mr. Beniak did not choose to speak at that particular point in time. So
could we offer him 5 minutes of our time to do that? Are you up for that?
we could, but or you could perhaps, as his liaison, having, being a sponsor of this, give us that detail, correct, or no?
Or I could ask him at that time.
You could. I just feel that a procedure was laid out and it was not followed, perhaps intentionally. Okay. All right. Our first line item here is on page 1 of the budget. And it's line item A0141011110, and a communication specialist. And you can see where that is. It's up the second line in under appropriations. And it's for a communication specialist. And Legislator Patel, you have put through a potential amendment here. And by the way, before we go any further, what we're going to do here is give everyone an opportunity to speak about the line item that they are sponsoring, if they do so choose to. And then we will take a straw vote line by line on each of these, so as not to get out of order. There's a couple that are related, interrelated, that we may be able to look at on a collective basis, but I'd like to try to go line by line if we could. So, Legislator Patel, would you like to offer any kind of input on that? Thanks.
Sure. My only question was, I thought that was shifted into another department. We had some discussions about that. I know Matt and I have had some discussions about it. I don't have any other comments besides that.
Okay. Anyone else want to speak about that line item?
So was the position shifted to another department?
Was it a change?
Executive Ossenford, can you provide us a little
Yeah,
background, please?
there's some potential internal moves going that we're looking at, but nothing has been confirmed or finalized at this point.
But can we talk about the mechanics of why it was in and why,
Well, I'm firmly in opposition to eliminating that position. And Bob and I had a good talk about it, and I understand where he's coming from, but I think it's a critical role in accounting for a whole host of reasons, but yeah, I don't know what else to say other than that.
Legislator Patel, how do you feel about that line item?
Just like I said, I don't have anything else to say about it.
Okay.
The executive and I had our discussion about it.
All right. Yes, Chairman Donovan.
A couple things on that. I mean, this was a bone of contention with the previous legislature, and I agree with Executive Ossenford that is a critical position. While I, obviously respect Legislator Patel's opinion, I do disagree with him. And one of the main things, beside being a critical position, moving the county forward, is with the new form of government. One of the things I disagree with is that we would go into the executive's personal budget and make cuts. To me, that would be the same as he coming into the legislator's budget and make cuts. So I respect the executive for budget, the county executive budget for Department 1 that he's put forward, and I would not going to be supporting this deduction.
I would just add one other thing, that there were a number of positions that were cut in the budget across a number of departments this year, and that included the executive budget. We did eliminate the Director of Labor Management, which is going to create some more work for somebody, and I'm not pointing at elbows at anybody. But at the same time, we're going to be able to, and I feel firmly that that position was necessary, but I felt strongly that if I was going to ask others to make some sacrifices, that we were going to make some sacrifices as well. So I think, losing one position we can handle, two I would be firmly against.
Okay. Any other comments or discussion on this? Hearing none. All in favor of changing this, please raise your hand. All those in favor of leaving the budget as is, please raise your hand. Do we have any no decisions? I didn't know if let's do this again. Excuse me?
Would you do roll call?
Mr. Chairman, I don't think there's any problem with a roll call. We're just creating a working document here.
Okay, we'll do a roll call. Do you want to do that? Or you want me to
Do you want me to start?
Yeah, sure, go ahead. Go ahead.
Brian? Okay,
You
Legislator
should
Sweet?
start with the first responder and
Yes.
I'm not an assistant to do it, so I'll have to kind of figure out how to go about this.
start with 9.
Legislator Patel?
No.
Legislator Sweet?
No.
Chairman Diamond?
Just for clarification, what what we're voting on now, that we agree with this change? And-
Correct.
And the sponsor says no? I'm going to say no.
No.
Both of them, where are we? Legislator Wilson,
No.
Legislator Duchessis,
No.
Legislator Isabel. Legislator, we already did the council, no.
All right, thank you. Our next line item is on page 1 in the executive's budget. County contribution to tourism. And as you know, we know the story there. It was in last year's budget, taken out. Mr. Kilmer was here to discuss it during the public comments section. Any other discussion on that? Legislator Patel.
I wholeheartedly stand behind putting this back in the budget for the chamber. I've worked hand in hand with the chamber. We've come up with a strategic plan. Last year, that's what we asked for. We came up with a strategic plan. We did a SWOT analysis. I've seen the relationship with the chamber increase significantly over the past 2 years. I've been really much happier with the exposure that the county of Montgomery County has gotten. In the past, I was not happy with it, and I was vocal about it. The chamber has also reworked their numbers and coming down from, not sure what the original number was, as proposed originally would have been $117,000. The chamber has worked their numbers down, including the grant, the matching grant is $66,236, which is even less than the amendment that I had offered originally. In business, I find that if something is working or starting to work, it's hard to nip it in the bud and change directions. And I would hope that my fellow legislators could appreciate what the chamber has done and where they're going, and certainly their ability to reduce the cost this year as opposed to increasing significantly.
Yes, Executive Bosworth.
Just to add to this discussion, I obviously, did not include this in my executive budget. Since that time, I've had a chance to talk with Mark, explain to him that my position has always been, I did not have any problems with the performance of the chamber. It was a financial decision. I applaud him for being able to make some reductions and squeeze the extra penny out of the nickel. Should the legislature decide to continue doing that, I would not be opposed to that.
Thank you. Any other discussion on this line item? Yes, Chairman Diamond.
I would just like to say that the issue with the chamber was never a matter of the work that they did. I thought they did a great job, and I will be supporting moving the money back to the chamber, but I think there's an adjustment that we have to make on here.
That's what I was going to.
Legislators vote, yes.
The adjustment is.
So that adjustment would go down to, based on our,
Based on the figures of $66,236. Sounds good.
It's 10.85.
And should you so choose, it is going to be in that ballpark, and Sean and I could work out the details and get that exact number and have that for you tomorrow for consideration, if you'd like.
yes, Sean.
Well, like I said, there's going to be a number of lines that are affected.
Yes.
We'll do it be part of the resolution. We're talking about it conceptually.
Yes.
Legislator Isabel.
Chair, I was very much against it last year. I thought, I see they made a lot of changes this year. And they're providing us, I know, the up-to-date for Montgomery County, which they never did. I think they're worth going forward on this.
All right, yes, Legislator Duchessis.
Yeah, I'd have to agree. I think the chamber has been responsive here to some of the changes that we requested in the past. So I would not support eliminating the funding, but I just want to know what the new number is exactly here. We're looking at what, off of this sheet here?
Well, there's two sheets. I think the one you're holding up is for administrative. Yeah, the other one is from matching funds.
But as Sean said, there's a number of lines that are affected because we do use tourism dollars, pay Fed tax funds to pay for it, so we can get those numbers lines together.
Okay.
Just what will the reduction be, just so I know exactly.
Can we ballpark it?
I think it's about a $15,000 to $20,000 reduction from what they originally proposed as far as local share.
70,000?
It's pretty accurate.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm sorry, what number should we put in then? Sean?
I haven't seen the new proposal, so I don't.
So now what you're saying, about 70,000?
We'll put in 70 then, okay. All right, any further discussion on this line item? Hearing none, clerk of the legislature, I believe it's time for a vote.
Legislator Patel.
Yes.
Legislator Sweet.
Aye.
Chairman Diamond.
Aye.
Legislator Hadwell.
Yes.
Legislator Wilson.
Yes.
Legislator Duchessis.
Yes.
Legislator Peck.
Yes.
Legislator Isabel.
Yes.
Pass.
Thank you. All right, let's move down to the next line item, Office for the Aging, page 1. Looking to change from 267 to 287, an increase of $20,000. And any story we want to have on this one? Chairman Diamond.
Thank you. This is something I do every year. When I started the first year as legislator, I think there was 40 or 50 people on the Meals on Wheels program. They're on the waiting list. We have whittled that down. This 20,000 addition will eliminate the waiting list for the Meals on Wheels, beside the number and the increased costs in the meals themselves. So this will bring us to zero. And one of the things that I've said from day one is that, I feel a county is measured by the way they take care of their seniors. And this is a good, very great program, the Meals on Wheels, and I would ask for your support. Thank you.
Any further discussion on this line item? Hearing none, clerks of the legislature?
Chairman Diamond.
Aye.
Legislator Wilson. Hadwell.
Yes.
Legislator Wilson.
Yes.
Legislator Duchessis.
Yes.
Legislator Peck.
Yes.
Legislator Isabel.
Yes.
Legislator Patel.
Yes.
Legislator Sweet.
Aye.
Pass.
All right, thank you. Moving on to the next line item, found on page 2 of your budgets workbook. Toward the bottom of the county executive's budget. As you know, this is a line item moved from our budget to the county executive's budget where it more aptly belongs, we all believed, hence our recommendation as a team. It appears as though Legislator Kelly is seeking a $10,000 increase to bring it back up to the level it was, or that was requested, excuse me. And he is not here to speak regarding the subject, so we'll go right to a vote. Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, I'm sorry.
If we just reiterate what Legislator Kelly had said, that the $10,000 is part of matching funds for the agricultural programs that they provide. So he asked for your consideration of adding the $10,000 back, which I'll be supporting. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. All right, any further discussion on the line item? Hearing none, we're ready for a vote.
Who should I start with?
Let's start with Legislator Sweet, since Legislator Kelly's not here.
Legislator Sweet.
Aye.
Chairman Diamond.
Aye.
Legislator Hadwell.
Aye.
Legislator Wilson.
Yes.
Legislator Duchessis.
Yes.
Legislator Peck.
Aye.
Legislator Isabel.
Yes.
Legislator Patel.
Yes.
Pass.
All right, next line item, same page, cooperative extension, looking to increase it back up to the level that it was, or that was requested, which is $95,790, an increase of about $21,000, $21,790. Anybody want to speak regarding this line item in Legislator Kelly's absence?
What was the budget last year?
No, you know, it's not in the workbook.
You gotta look at our budget.
Right. It's in Department 30, our department. Let's take a look.
It was 93,000.
93? Okay. Any discussion on this?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman. Just that historically, we've taken on, this is something that's funded by Fulton and Montgomery counties. And historically, we've taken on, I think, a greater share of that burden. So my tendency would be to vote against this.
Create more of a little bit more of a level playing field, Legislator DeChessie?
Well, I'd like to see that, yeah.
Yes? Okay. Thank you. Any other input into this line item? Hearing none, once again, Clerk.
Legislator Sweet.
Thank you.
Chairman Diamond.
No.
Legislator Hedwell.
No.
Legislator Wilson.
Yes.
Legislator DeChessie.
No.
Legislator Peck.
No.
Legislator Isabel.
No.
Legislator Patel.
No.
Yeah.
All right, next line item, located on page 4 of your budget workbooks. And it is the Pax Hotel occupancy going from, last year it was adopted at 55. It was requested this year at 55. It was supported by the executive at 55. Legislator Kelly is seeking an increase here of $15,000. And if I'm not mistaken, that is directly related to the youth days at the county fair, correct? Chairman Diamond, any further input?
Sean had something, but I do have something. Go ahead, Sean.
So I'm going to speak on behalf of the revenue line only, the hotel motel. If you look at the actual budget versus actual sheet on page 6, you'll see that line has historically been going down. So honestly, I don't think it's a smart move to increase that revenue to 70,000. Seeing it's been trending downward since 2014. If you look at line 1113 on page 6 of the adopted versus budget, we went from 60 and 14 to 57 to 55.
Page 6?
New establishments opening in the county that would,
Oh, that one.
that would justify
Yeah, okay.
an increase in the bed tax of $15,000. I understand what the rationale behind Legislator Kelly's is just defining offsetting revenue, but I just don't think this is a prudent move to put a fictitious revenue.
Thank you, Sean. That said, certainly this became quite topical on a last-minute basis in the month of August. And it was discussed widely among all of us that we were not happy with the fact that it was handled that way, when in fact it had been prescribed last year by the legislature that we should try to get this into some line items so that we didn't have to scramble last minute. any other potential solutions? Yes, Chairman Diamond.
I think Legislator Kelly, I understand what he's trying to do, and with Sean's input, I agree that we shouldn't add the revenue to that. What I think would work is that we would decrease the tax, hotel occupancy tax by $15,000, knowing that the most we're going to get is 55, and take the 15 and add it to the youth services line, and that would solve the issue. So if we want, I would make a recommendation, we change it from 55 to 40. And add the 15
To the Youth Bureau. Youth Bureau.
Can you repeat? So we know 55 is the number, that's the number, it's been the number for the last half a dozen years. So what I think Legislator Kelly was trying to do is to take the money from the hotel occupancy tax. So in doing that, I would show the revenue instead of 55 at 40,000, and the additional 15 that we know we're getting will be the funding used for the fair. So in other words, 55 is all we have. So we're reducing the money that's going into that revenue and putting it into the other line.
But isn't that revenue,
Appropriation, not revenue.
isn't that revenue from that tax directed towards certain things?
Yes, yeah, economic development is.
Yes, Sean.
I'll call a spade a spade. The cleanest thing to do is just add the 15 to the youth bureau.
Yeah.
You're beating around the bush here.
Trying to, right.
It comes down to you're adding $15,000 to either fund balance or tax levy anyway, so.
Right.
If you reduce the revenue, it's still a hit to the budget, so. And if you increase the thing, increase the line, it's gonna cost you $15,000 no matter what.
6 of one, half a dozen of the other.
I know, but we like talking about this.
More than Obamacare.
Like I said, I'm just speaking on behalf of the revenue line because I know the 15,000 in the youth is a line down further on the check.
Right. All right, well then,
I guess just vote on it as is.
Hold on this line the way it is right now.
all right.
Okay. Legislator Sweet.
Voting on the line item as is, Legislator Sweet.
Aye.
Chairman Diamond.
No.
Legislator Headwell.
So we're not voting for the
Yes.
change, right?
We're not voting for this change, no. No.
So what are we doing now?
No, we're voting for this change. Well, this line item is the one we're voting for right now. So, do we want to make the change this way or put it?
No, to make the change, then.
I'm sorry?
No to make the change.
So I don't want to make a change to this, I want to add 15 to the.
Youth Bureau,
Right,
yeah.
so you want to
So you
know.
vote no.
Okay. Legislator Wilson.
I'm going to say yes.
Legislator Duchessis.
No.
Legislator Peck.
No.
Legislator Isabel.
No.
Legislator Patel.
No.
It's a no.
All right.